Alright, so I want to explain a thing, but it might not be as coherent as I want it to be. There's a lot of moving parts, and so I'll try to present it in a way that is understandable. One of the hallmark characteristics of the schizoid experience is a very vivid inner world, and in recent years I have endeavored to kind of wean myself off of relying on that inner world so heavily, because in creating my own identity, I feel like I need to attach myself, re-engage, plug myself into the world around me and actually experience it. And so that's what I've been doing for the past few years, and I think I've actually done an okay job. I definitely have been able to kind of build my identity from these like fragmented pieces of self, and I don't think I'm whole, but I feel a lot more substantial than I did in years past. And I've talked about it before. There's this distinct experience of homelessness and kind of discarding old coping mechanisms in order to build new ones. And it's like breaking your lease before you have a new place to live. And for a while I was experiencing this god-awful homelessness. It's because what it is a lack of an ability to cope. And that was readily apparent last year while I was on my money vacation, that I was incapable of getting my shit together. I mean, I'm always incapable of doing it, but it's a lot more stark when I have literally no coping mechanisms. And so retreating into my dream world was a big one for me. And in trying to wean myself off of it, I have been able to form this identity that I kind of identify with, that I kind of feel like I understand, at least a little. And like yesterday was fucking bad. I did a video, which, I mean, don't you ever get tired of this? And I look at the ceiling. It looks like chicken fat. The world is covered in slime. My mind has decided to latch on to spiders, of all things, to hallucinate. I hallucinate spiders, enormous spiders, like really big spiders, but also sometimes really small invisible ones. I know that makes no fucking sense, but I'm sure that they're spiders. Yeah, you can see I'm a little worse for wear. I prefer to spend my time alone. And in being alone for extended periods of time, I start to depersonalize. And that wasn't so much an issue because in the past, there was nothing really to depersonalize from. There was no self, there was no identity to kind of float away from. And so now that I have this makeshift identity that I've kind of pieced together from fragments of past Finn and idealized Finn, I'm finding that being alone for extended periods of time drives me fucking crazy. But I still am like pathologically introverted. Like, I didn't realize like other people don't experience like outright disgust when in throngs of people, but I definitely do.
When I'm surrounded by just copious amounts of people, it's like being surrounded by cockroaches. And it's not that I see people as less, it's just that they bother me. the thought bothers me. So I've kind of built this conduit between myself, my consciousness, and reality so that I can connect and perceive reality in a way that isn't entirely distorted. And so now when I depersonalize, all I'm left with is reality. And reality fucking sucks. It's really shitty. And it is absolutely bizarre, just fucking odd to be so firmly planted within myself. I actually kind of fucking hate it. I can feel things like cold and hot and taste things. And emotions don't make fucking sense. Because I mean, I'm like feeling them more. But they seemingly still come out of nowhere. It makes the world too fucking bright. It's too fucking vivid. And so I went down to the hotel lobby this morning. I got a cup of coffee, and it's almost like I need to, on occasion, immerse myself in the human experience to remind myself that I'm not a fucking Eldritch beast that sustains itself on its own fucking bile. I actually have to contextualize my humanity by being around people. And that is fucking wild. That's absolutely wild. I'm sure that other people experience this where, like, if they spent a lot of time by themselves, they feel a little bit wispy. And it's the same for me. I do experience that. But it's more from the standpoint of this entire fucking experience being so new to me that I have to, like, practice at it. Like, I have to remind myself, like, this is not how I'm supposed to be thinking. This is not how I'm supposed to be responding to myself. So let me go downstairs and look at how people are, like, living and shit, to remind myself that, like, I'm a person. But it very much feels like there are parts of me that are missing. And those parts are essential to understanding that I am a human being. And when I spend too much time alone, like in a suffocating space, I depersonalize and I start hallucinating. It's fucking wild. And in going downstairs to kind of re-immerse myself in the people experience, I discovered that my dream world is still an option. It's still a viable option for existing in the world. And it's odd to return to it because it feels so different. It feels so entirely different from what I remember. But it's entirely familiar at the same time. It's a different landscape, but it's still comfortable. And I think that I can kind of have my cake and eat it too, where I can find kind of a happy medium between the two. Or maybe hybridize the reality experience with the fantasy experience in a way, because it feels fucking good. It's really nice. And I forgot how fucking nice it was. to just be suspended in this dream world of mine, of my creation. It's almost like I'm asleep. It literally does feel like, you know, when you're taking a sleeping pill and you start to feel sleepy and you fight through that shit. That's a little bit what it feels like. And I have to get out and do something. I have to adventure. And I think of all of the side effects, all of the pain, trauma that re-engaging with the world has brought me. I think it is worth it in that I can enjoy nature, because I have forgotten how important it was to me. That I just really, I like being outside. I like running water a lot. I like greenery. And that's a part of the real world. And I was incapable of really appreciating it before I decided to kind of re-engage with reality. And I went out today to a park. I'm still there, still here. And I sat next to this creek and just put my feet in the water and was chilling. And I could still feel it. My heart feels like, my heartbeat feels different. Like the whole experience feels different. And I've it's crazy how easily I've forgotten how essential fantasy is for me in navigating through the world. Because it makes me feel like I can do fucking anything. It makes literally everything possible. It's like walking on air. And it's kind of similar to dissociation, but it's so pointed, so filling, substantial. It's different from dissociation. And I don't even know how, but it's different. But yeah, it's interesting that re-engaging with reality has made parts of reality more digestible. And I think that in the future, I will endeavor to engage with reality and fantasy in a way that makes me feel fulfilled. Because just reality by itself isn't enough. Fantasy by itself is, but I need to be engaged with the world in order to exist in it comfortably. If the world wasn't the way it was, then I could just live in fantasy all the time. I'll talk to y'all later.